This is step 3 of generating a geologic map using digital resources for Field 2. At this point, we've created a lot of data using Google Earth, and we're going to take that Google Earth information and pull it into ArcMap so we can create an actual mappable document. In order to do that, first of all, we're going to have to pull in our KMZ information, and in order to do that, we're going to have to use ArcToolbox. So under Conversion Tools in ArcToolbox, we're going to choose From KML. We're going to pull in that KML information and dump it to a layer. So if I select my KML, and we were calling it, and it'll do a KML or KMZ. So here is my mapping features.kmz. And so there's mapping features.kmz is going to convert it and dump it into documents ArcGIS. And we're going to name this mapping features some number so that it is happy with me. And so it just takes a few seconds to convert that information depending on how much data you actually have sitting in there. We can actually pull in more information if you want. We can do that again and pull in the Bradshaw's KMZ that we had to begin with. And if we say include the ground overlay, then it's going to bring in all of that image information as well. So that may take another couple of seconds to convert all of that. You can see that down perfect. All right, so we have all of this data that we started out with, and we can turn that ground overlay on and off. We have all these different layers. What we really care about is this information that we're creating, these polygons and these lines. And before we get too far, let's change. You can see that that cross section is a white line. So let's change that to something a bit more interesting that we can actually see. Oh, it's still white. It's probably this one that I want to change. And we'll pick some random scaling. Okay, so we have all the information that we need in order to actually generate this map. Let's go back and change that to white. Hollow. Okay. We have a pink line that shows the cross section. We have this dark line that shows the outline of the mapped area. We have a bunch of point features within there and a couple other polygons. All right. Now what we're going to do is simply generate a map, including topography, in order to actually produce a nice publishable map output. And the way that we're going to do that is by switching our view from the data view to the layout view. And you can go back and forth between these two relatively easily. So what this is saying is here's the page that if I were to print it, it would look actually on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So first thing we're going to do is change that size of the paper. We're not going to use the printed paper settings. Instead, we're going to create this custom sized map, and we're not going to print this out, so we can make it whatever size we want. So we're going to make it 20 inches by 30 inches. And let's scale the map elements proportionally. So here we have this map page, and at this point you can actually change things around pretty drastically. Now here's the mapped area, so of course we want to zoom in on that. So here are the zoom buttons for within that map view, within that data frame. And I'm going to zoom in to some appropriate level. Okay, and maybe one step out. Or maybe one step in. So if this is the area that we're going to generate this geologic map, it looks pretty good. And but of course we need other information on here, such as a north arrow. So let's slap a north arrow on there. It's relatively simple. North is straight up. We're also going to need a title. The title will be Geomap. And let's put a scale bar on there. And let's choose this basic scale bar. If you want to see what's going on in there, you're going to have to zoom in and out a little bit. So that scale bar can either be modified in size this way, or you can actually double click on it and change any characteristics you want. So let's say we're going to put it in kilometers instead. Alright, so there's our north arrow, our scale bar, and what the heck, let's also add some scale text to give us our true scale. 1 1 to 15,000. That's a pretty good scale. All right, so this is very basic. You can, of course, modify all these things to make them look much better. What we also want to do is actually put a grid on there so we have geolocation information. In order to do that, you're going to right-click on Layers, go down to Properties, and you have all these tab options. We're going to choose a new grid. And you're going to choose this measured grid. And we can change some. The intervals are entirely up to you. You should fiddle around with this. I'm going to change it to every 0.05 decimal degree. And let's just change it to tick marks and labels. Next. And when we're finished, we can say OK. And now we have these tick marks on the page and actual locations. They're pretty small. So it might be worth changing these around. So in properties, we can change these overall properties, change the size of the labels. Let's go up a bit, size 11, and see if that looks, it's a little bit better. All right, so we have location information, we have basic title and scale bar and everything else. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to switch you back to data view, and without zooming in or out, I want you to add some data, and we're going to add the base map at this point. So if we choose topographic, this is going to go to ArcGIS's servers and pull the topographic information that underlies the mapped area that we have. So here we have our outline of the mapped area, our polygons and everything else is sitting on top of this base map that is the topography. So it was good to see it in the data view. Now we will switch back to this layout view. And unfortunately, this is where ArcGIS really often starts to break down. All right, so scale is off a little bit. And we're going to zoom in a bit until we're back to the scale that we want to map at. Now, servers start to break down at this point, and things start to get a little bit goofy. So fairly often, this is the last step that you want to do because it will start to act funny. All right, so we don't actually see any information in there, but we know that we have all of that title, scale bar, everything else buried within this image. So what we're going to do is go to Export Map, and when you're in this view, we can choose all these different formats. You can dump it as a TIFF, a JPEG, etc. We're probably going to use Adobe Illustrator in order to actually do our final mapping. So an appropriate name would be, let's say Bradshaw. Bradshaw map. And it's going to dump to desktop. So once we save that, ArcGIS is going to generate this Adobe Illustrator type file. So when we open it up in Adobe, it will have that background topography. It will have all of these lines and polygons that we saved along the way. Now the reality is probably you're going to have to do this more than once. Try it once and see what it looks like when you get to Adobe Illustrator and see if it makes sense. You may have to go back. Potentially you might have to go all the way back to Google Earth in order to modify your data in order to make it make sense. So meanwhile, this thing is going to grind on it for a while, and the next step will be to open this Adobe Illustrator file in Illustrator and do our final mapping.